So, when we were 30 and maybe even 40, definitely 20, you could be doing reps and sets where you're doing like a very high load and less repetitions, like 5 repetitions.
Hi, welcome to the Judy Terrell Show, where I explore topics intended to optimize every body 50, 60, 70, and above.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Judy Terrell Show. If you are joining me on this episode, then you are on episode number 6 of my 6th series. And the topic for this series is how to train as an endurance athlete who is over 60. So I've covered a variety of topics already, and this is a progressive series, although you can listen to each episode independently. I do highly recommend you listen to all of them because as an over 60 endurance athlete myself, I know that each parts of the series are independently important. And if you put them all together, you're going to get your best bang for your buck for what you need to know as an endurance athlete over 60 to avoid injury, to avoid burnout and overtraining and the fatigue like that can come from doing that, and the recovery time that you need to pull yourself out of that black hole should you find yourself in it. So definitely if you have not listened to the other ones, when you're done with this one, go back and listen to them. But my subject for this episode is strength training. And I know it seems counterintuitive because if you're an endurance athlete like myself, you resonate to that because you like the endurance athlete stuff and you really don't like so much the strength training, CrossFit, Olympic lifting, just strength training in general. I'm not saying that you won't do it. It's just like clearly that's not what you've resonated to. Otherwise, you'd be in those type of activities and sports. But as an endurance athlete over 60, it is imperative that we keep a strength training component in our training plan. As we get older, we are living in bodies that have a lower and lowering amount of certain things like testosterone, estrogen, human growth hormone, and a variety of other substances that when we were younger, were at higher levels, and they helped our body rebuild, repair, recover, maintain. And as we're in our 60s and then our 70s and our 80s, these levels drop. And so we need to now make up for the dropping levels of those hormones and others by adding more demand on the body so that your body goes into what's called hormesis. It's like hormesis is you got to ask your body you have to have a higher demand on the body so the body will step up to meet that demand, but not too high of a demand because then it'll break down. You didn't need that over demand necessarily when you were younger because your body had these other substances in there that were kind of doing that without hormesis. But as we get older, because these substances are going down, we need to have a demand on the body that's higher than our everyday activities, so that your body has to rise to the occasion in a sense and step up so that it's doing the repair and the rebuilding that it needs to do, even with reduced amounts of the substances that aids it to do that. So I hope that makes sense to you. So as an endurance athlete, you might be getting resistance work when you're climbing hills. You might, be running up hills outside. You might be hiking up hills. You might be swimming, pulling water, with a swim buoy. And all those things create added resistance on your muscles and your joints. But if you're doing that, you're doing it on a regular basis. And so as endurance athletes, we need to step up the game and we need to be adding some more demand even above that with resistance so that we're keeping the integrity and the ability of our muscles to do what we do on an everyday basis and without atrophy. And to assist with those other activities not being so high because we haven't done anything even higher than that they actually are breaking down your body when you're trying to do those activities to actually build it and train for events. So strength training, absolutely necessary. So how do you do the strength training when you're over 60 becomes very important. So there's not just so strength training involves either machines or dumbbells or barbells or bands and tubes with elastic resistance, kettlebells, medicine balls, anything where there's more load on your muscles than there is in your everyday activities. Now, as younger people, our joints can handle like very heavy loads. So, when we were 30 and maybe even 40, definitely when you're 20, you could be doing reps and sets where you're doing like a very high load and less repetitions, like 5 repetitions of 90% of your 1 rep max, which is the max you could do for one time, and do a set like of 5 reps, 8 reps to failure, and then give yourself some recovery. Do that multiple times, 3 to 4, 5 sets, and you would be doing the kind of strength training that you need to supplement the training that you're doing out in your for endurance. As an older athlete, what happens is our joints, tendons, ligaments are now more susceptible to injury, and it's counterintuitive to be using really, really heavy weight for less reps. So, but you want to get that total load so there's enough adaptation to keep your body repairing, rebuilding, and able to sustain the trainings you're doing out on the road. So how do you get that if you're also more susceptible to joint injury and muscle injury if to use the heavyweight protocol that I just said? And this is the way you do it when you're over 60. You're gonna load about 80 or 75% of your maximum 1 rep max, but you're going to do it with enough repetitions that you're getting like fatigue, like a shaky, almost a failure. All right. What most athletes over 60 do is they might do a moderate weight, but they're not doing enough reps and enough sets to get to that feeling of like almost failure. And so you're not getting that hormesis effect that we're after. So what does that look like in the gym? It means if you're going to do a lat pull down, you're going to use a weight so that you're getting like maybe on repetition anywhere from 8 to 20, you're getting like to the point of like shaky and almost failure. All right. And you go to do one more and you might have 1 or 2 more in you, but you stop. And then you do another set just like that. So now by the time you get to 3 or 4 sets of 8 to 20 reps, but with a weight that's taking you to almost complete failure within that range of reps, that is going to give you the type of overloading that the same like higher load at 5 to 8 reps would have done when you were younger, but you're protecting your joints for your over 60. So again, it's like a moderate to high moderate loading, but with enough reps to get you to the failure. All right. That is the protocol when you're over 60 that you need to make up for the demise of the muscles and the strength that happens as we're aging that we need if we're going to still participate in endurance sports over 60. Now, how frequently do you need to do this strength training I just talked about? You need to be doing it enough times. You can't just do it once a week because that's not enough to get you the, or one time every 2 weeks, let's say, because that's not enough frequency to get the loading, the adaptation that we're after. So for my over 60 athletes, I'm saying we need to get 2 of the type of strength training I just described workouts for the whole body or the same muscle group. Okay. You might have to do it more frequently if you're splitting up body parts, but to do the whole body, you need to get 2 of those type trainings within a 9-day training block. When we were younger, we might need to get 2 or even 3 of those within a 7-day block, but that would be a little too much for us over 60 people. So I'm saying somewhere between 9 days to get 2 of those type strength trainings, in addition to the higher intensity trainings and the long endurance trainings that I've spoken about in the prior episodes. So again, if you didn't listen to those, go back and hear that. But so 2 of the strength training that I just described within a 9-day training block, it seems to be that is what is adequate so that you're not getting atrophy, and it's frequently enough that you're not, getting a load and then too long of a time in between before you get the next load. So you actually lose the benefit of the load before that, the strength training loading. So 9 days seems to be a sweet spot for my over 60 to get 2 of those trainings in, and get the benefits we're after, and limit the injury possibility and not miss the training adaptation, because now you're doing one every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, and that's not enough frequency. So for this final episode, we're training for an endurance athlete over 60 to avoid injury, to avoid overtraining, and to avoid atrophy of our bodies while we're trying to do our trainings and still participate in our races. Strength training, non-negotiable, not an extra to be added when you have the time. It's an imperative part of your training plan. It has to be done in a way that gets you to muscle failure, but using more rep combined with the weight, as opposed to less rep and higher weight, because when you're over 60, that is more apt to injure you. And then getting in 2 of those type workouts within a 9-day training block. Very important for us 60 and plus endurance athletes. So we've come to the end of my series for how to train as an endurance athlete over 60. I hope that you've picked up pearls along the way in this series, some of which you may have known, but I'm hoping that at least 1 or 2 things that I presented are things that you didn't know, so you can add that to your toolbox. My goal for creating these series is to make our second 50 years even better than our first 50 years. That is my goal. I'm projecting it onto all my cohorts that are over 60 and over 50 with me. And if you find that you've found some valuable information in this series and some of my others, if you've watched those, then I welcome you to go to my website, where I have even more training information and things that you can download that will aid you, that are not just about training. They're about nutrition, they're about psychology, a whole host of things that I'm adding to all the time on my website for you to view, that will help your training, and not just your training, but your life when you're over 50, and then 60, 70, 80, and hopefully 90 and 100. Maybe we'll all still be training and participating in our sports. I know there's people out there now. I just watched an interview with a centurion that's setting records in the marathon. So hopefully you and I will be there too. So as always, thank you everybody for watching and tuning in. Stay tuned for my next series, and be on guard for that, and be well. Thanks for listening, everybody. And if you'd like to have access to some of my additional resources, I can be found at Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and on my website, www.judyterrell.com.